Tying up another wet fly from Ray Bergman's book, Trout. This is the Harlequin, very handsome little fly. Has a two-tone floss body. Not many of the wet fly patterns have that. Another one that comes to mind that does is the Watson's Fancy. But the orange and blue is also kind of a unique color combination. But I thought this was a very interesting fly. It's an interesting technique and a challenge to get the body just right, nice and smooth. Just a handsome fly. So that is the Harlequin, and I'll get started tying. I'm going to start the Harlequin with my hook in the vise. This is a Mustad 33.99 in a size 6. I'm going to debarb the hook. Because it is a floss body with the blue and the orange, I don't want to start with the dark thread. I want to darken it up, so I'm going to start with a Danville 6/0 in white. I've already waxed my thread, give me a little bit more grip to it. Run my thread down to just past the point of the hook. Give me a nice base layer of thread. And here I'm going to tie in the ribbing. The body is made up of just 3 different flosses. There's a blue, an orange, and a black. The rib is the black. This is a Danville 4-strand Rayon in black. And I'm only going to use 2 of the strands. I don't want a very thick rib on this. I just want it to have a pronounced marking to it. I'm going to attach that and pull that back so that it's the length of the body, getting in a few more wraps to secure that real well and get myself right to the end of the hook shank. Now I'm going to tie in. The rear portion is made of an orange floss. I'm going to use a Danville 4-strand Rayon in orange as well, but I'm only going to use 2 of the strands on this as well, because there's the floss and there's basically 3 different flosses under here. Once you get the blue in there and all, it can get really thick if you use all 4 strands. I'm going to advance my thread forward to halfway down the hook shank. I have found, when in doubt, stay a little bit further back down the hook shank, because remember, you're going to have a head right here. There's a wing and a hackle that are put on here. So if you were minus the space for the head here, and this is the body, this actually would be a little bit too far forward. So I'm going to take a couple wraps off, and that will put me just shy of the halfway point of the hook shank, but halfway on the body. I'm going to apply the orange floss. Just want to make this nice and smooth application. Doesn't have to be thick. I find that on this fly I generally get about 5 to 6 wraps. I'm going to make certain all my thread wraps are covered up. And then we go ahead and secure that in. 1 wrap backwards to secure it in. Now I'll trim this the length of the body, and as you can see, like I said, this is going to start kind of getting a little bit thicker. In some ways you can't help that, but at the same time you do want to try and have the rear portion and the front portion the same diameter on the hook shank. But technically speaking, if you were to look at this really super close, you probably are going to notice that this portion right here is a little bit greater diameter than the rear portion. Now my floss right here is a little bit long. It's getting in the headspace more than I like. So I'm going to bring my thread back here and trim that back a little bit. Always keep an eye out for these things as you're tying, because things like this floss does have some stretch in it. When you apply it and wrap over it, it can kind of push forward sometimes. So I'll wrap all that down, keeping a nice smooth body. I should end just right at the back of the head. I'm going to apply the blue floss. Now I want to make certain my first wrap goes back this way so that that is covering up any white thread. Come forward a little bit, keeping this nice and smooth. And you may notice that on this body also some of the floss is frayed a little bit. That would be my fault, because rough hands with this rayon floss will easily fray it. Made up very fine rayon fibers, and micro hangnails and things like this, will catch it, and that's probably what that is. You can solve some of those problems by, applying hand cream to your hands to keep them soft, using an emery board on your fingertips, your finger pads, and so on. For a fly, if I were going to want to frame this, I would probably want to get that a little bit closer, make certain I eliminate that. Might take some tweezers or something, but as a fishing fly, I'm not that concerned about it. Also, if I were going to frame this, I probably would do another one, because my halfway point here could be a little bit further. Maybe one more wrap of orange up there. But that's how it works. Now I'm going to apply the rib to this, and the rib is pretty simple. You're just going to wrap this around just like it were a tinsel or something. However, I'm going to give my floss here a twist. From my vantage point right here, I'm twisting this clockwise. That way, as I'm wrapping it around, it's not getting untwisted. Each time I come around, I'm going to twist that up clockwise, because it's going to slowly work that twist out as I'm wrapping it on there. I just want to get the traditional 5 wraps. The 6th one comes right up the side of the head space. Now we have our body complete for the Harlequin. I'm going to change over to my finishing thread, which is a Danville 6/0 in black. Put a little wax on my thread. Attach my thread right behind the eye of the hook, wrap backwards. This is where I'll tie in the wing. Now you probably also noticed that when I trimmed all that floss on the underbody right there back, I trimmed it a little bit further back. So I ended up nice diameter here from the back to the front, but then it kind of came down. I'm not that concerned about it because the rib adds a little to it, but I got a wing and a hackle, so this is pretty much covered up. Now the wing is just a dark slate. I'm using some goose quill here for my wing. I've already got my slips cut, so I will match those up. I want to make certain my tips are even. I'm going to check my width on both of these. I think I have, yeah, one's just got one barb too wide. So I'll peel that out. Make certain it's no more than the gap of the hook, but I usually like about 3/4 of the gap of the hook. I'm going to measure this. I want the tips to extend just a little bit past the bend. If there were a tail on this, it would be about halfway down. Another way to look at that is the very short fiber at the bottom of this angle should be right about back to the bend. Pinch and loop. Pull that down. A few more wraps to secure it. We'll take a look at our wing. You do want all the body to be visible here on the wing. You don't want, I got a little bit of white showing there. I'm going to unwrap this right here. I'm going to wrap a little bit of this black thread down here just to cover up that little spot of white. Come back up to where my wing's going to go in. As I was saying, you don't want the wing to slide around to the sides of the body. You want it to all come down on top, and you want the body visible. If you're happy with that, you can trim away the excess here. We will bring the thread down to the eye of the hook and back. This is just securing those butt ends in, giving us a platform for our hackle. The Harlequin has just a black hackle on it. I'm using this is just a whiting hen neck. I don't need much off of this. Peel away the fluff here because I certainly don't need that, but even these are too long. What I'm going to do is tie this in by the tip, and I'm just going to wrap in 2, maybe 3 wraps at most. I don't need a whole lot, and I want the resulting, generally the last wrap or 2, to be the length between the head right here and the point of the hook, anywhere from the point of the hook to the barb. So I'm going to trim away that tip to give myself a little anchor. Wrap this down to behind the eye of the hook. Taking my hackle pliers, I'll get 1 wrap here, working my way down, another wrap, and then I'm going to probably just do a half a wrap. I don't need a real thick collar on this. A lot of your wet flies, they're not as light or sparse, I should say, as like a soft hackle fly, but they're not really super thick. Stroking all of those back, including the rest of that feather, I'm going to wrap backwards, creating the head of the fly. I can then break away that, flatten my thread, and put in my whip finish. A little bit of head cement on here. That will soak down in there and secure the head of that fly. And then I'll come back and put a couple coats of black lacquer on that. That is the Harlequin. Handsome little fly. Again, one of the few that have a two-tone body to it. The orange and the blue kind of have an interesting effect to it. You know, I just thought of something. You could actually shrink up that orange just a little bit more. What would be interesting is to tie a fly like this, but actually bring the orange down here and make like a hot spot of orange, or even yellow, then orange, and then blue. Anyway, there's a thought, but that is the Harlequin. Thanks for watching today. Thank you for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned a new pattern, at least a tip or trick here and there. If you'd like to help Dress Irons, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things for the video. You can also head out to dressedirons.com where you can buy flies, tools, stickers, and merch, or you can join a growing community over on Locals at the Dressed Irons Fly Tying Guild. You can also donate to Dressed Irons if you want through the link at the bottom of the description. I thank everybody for their ongoing support, as it really does help the creation of these videos. But what's important is to remember, only fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.